them shoot Bob, them shoot Bob. I say, what? I say, yeah man, was just a poor road. Them shoot Bob, enough gunshot in that place. My man was shaking, you know, because he was there when it happened. I claim to be the first dreadlocks rasta to work in an office situation.
This is at Daily News?
At the Jamaica Daily News.
Oh, that grow the locks.
Grow the locks and, you know, indulge in the sacrament daily.
Marijuana, na.
We didn't have guns in those times.
Really?
A gun was a rare thing, yeah. A road boy used to carry a ratchet knife. This was in Trenchtown. Bob came down one day and in his little beat up Volkswagen van and had a box of records selling, which was Catch a Fire. And we were introduced and that's where I met him formally for the first time.
What would you say is the most impactful message Bob has left with us?
Unity.
So it's really a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you, Uncle Thorold, and to get a blast from the past, so to speak, as we have been doing, as you know, when we link and power and talk and chill.
Okay.
So please introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself. When did you come to be on this on this earth?
Well, as a Muslim, we always start with Bismillah.
Bismillah.
In the name of God. Yeah, the name is Thorold. Most people have never heard that name, Thorold. Second name, DeMercardo, which is of Spanish origin. First name is of Norwegian origin.
Okay.
And they call me all kind of derivatives from it. Thorold, Errol, Harold, T-Man.
T-Man.
Journalist, Daily News, all different kinds of names. Born and grew in Jamaica. In late, I won't tell you the exact date, not that I'm shy. 1948, grew up in Jamaica, went to prep school in Jamaica and then on to St. George's College High School for Boys.
Okay.
Then at my teenage years in Jamaica, which was one of the best times, left Jamaica and went to live in New York for about 4 years. Came back to Jamaica, had my, journalistic, artistic career. Was a Rasta for a time during the 70s when Rasta was just moving uptown.
Okay.
So I claim...
You're an uptown boy?
Yes, well, uptown, yeah. I claim to be the first dreadlocks Rasta to work in an office situation.
This is at Daily News?
At the Jamaica Daily News.
Okay.
I spent about 10 years there from the beginning to the end and spent some more time in New York and then at the Jamaica Observer. By then I had changed faith. Well, not so much more Rasta, but spiritually.
Okay.
Came to England in '93 and been here ever since. Been back to Jamaica a few times. So I do artwork, I do painting, as you can see around the place. In my spare time, I'm retired now. And my spare time taken up with painting. Love music and everything Jamaican, except for the boogie them nowadays. That's another story.
There's always a sort of mismatch between generations as it goes.
Yes, a big difference.
But you're also a father.
Yeah, father of 4 and 4 grandchildren.
Congratulations.
Recently lost my daughter about a year ago.
Condolences. Yeah,
she was a fighter to the end and she's still alive with us, but 4 children, 4 grandchildren.
Okay, so your first job was at Daily News, you said?
No, my first job after leaving New York, I studied graphic arts and advertising in New York in the late 60s, 68 to about 71. Then I returned to Jamaica and was employed in advertising agencies. And then the Jamaica Daily News opened in 71. And I went there looking for a job in the art department as an artist, graphic artist. By that time I was a member of the 12th Tribe of Israel Rasta organization.
Okay.
And I started to grow dreadlocks, and I had my tam.
Which tribe were you a part of?
Zebulon.
Zebulon.
So I had a pink tam.
Okay.
And a pink bush jacket. I always try to dress, you know. Dapper. So I went for the interview with the managing editor at the time, who was Mr. Prout, but he was Barbadian. I always say he didn't have that prejudice against Rastas that most Jamaicans, especially in that time, and especially in that position, had.
That's interesting.
So during the interview, I told him I wanted to work in the advertising department, and he said, well, the advertising department is filled, but I see from your CV that we have openings in the editorial department for a sub-editor. I didn't know what a sub-editor was at the time. It's a person who designs the pages of the newspaper. Every separate page is like an advertisement. You have to have a headline, a story, a caption, and things. So he said, maybe you would be interested in that. You look like you have the skills, right? So I said, yes. So I got a job there as a sub-editor. And that was in 1971. And I had the Jamaica Daily News. And I rose through the ranks.
Right.
To when they closed, I was the chief sub-editor in charge of editorial department production.
And when was that they closed?
That was 1982, I think, 81, 82.
1982, so about 20,
about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, yeah.
So that transition then from, so you left Jamaica in the late 60s to go abroad to
68,
study. 68, come back in
71,
early 71.
Yeah.
That's what, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years,
yeah.
And that was in New York, you say?
Yeah, New York. Yeah.
What was that like then, the transition, you know, going from JA in the 60s, coming back in the 70s? Was there much of a change you felt over that period, from the 60s into the 70s?
Well, not so much of a change in those 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, people that left, most of my friends had migrated like myself, and most of them didn't come back.
Okay.
But I was always determined to come back to Jamaica, because when I left in 68, Jamaica was swinging, bubbling on the top, nice time, you know, and so
everything sweet, everything nice.
Yeah.
I said Jamaica, no problem.
No problem. Talk about no problem. You had a few rude boys, like in, you know what.
Before the original Don Gorgon and them.
Yeah, well, we were
the
rude boys then were the original Don Gorgon.
Okay.
But we used to call them rude boys in those days. We used to sing about them, all the popular songs. It's a rude boy gone to jail, and Prince Buster would say, you know, Judge Dredd, rude boy, went to sentence you to 100 years, you know. So right. Rude boy was the term for, well, not gangsters, but...
we call them bad man these days.
Bad man these days, or duppy maker, or murderer. You didn't have guns in those times.
Really?
A gun was a rare thing, yeah. The most deadly weapon was a ratchet knife. You know what a ratchet knife is?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a blade like a switchblade. A rude boy used to carry a ratchet knife. He never had guns. Rarely you find a gun. If you see the movie Harder They Come,
right? Yes, absolutely.
With Jimmy Cliff and Ivan, well, he would have been a rude boy in his robbery days in that movie. Yes,
that was quite a movie actually. I didn't expect it to end how it ended.
Yeah, well, most rude boys ended up like that.
Okay, I gotcha.
I'm not around anymore.
Yeah, I say, if you live them type of way, then you're closer to the cemetery.
Yes.
Yeah.
As Bwoy would say, most men nowadays don't live past 40. So it was in those days.
Wow. That transition then from ratchet knife to now in Jamaica, you know, the violence is actually quite a problem. We have one of the highest murder rate per capita in the world, for sure. So when exactly Jamaica started to feel like there was a lot more guns?
Well, all right. In the late 60s, in the rude boy era, you have your ratchet knife, a man might have a cutlass, or a man might have an ice pick, or rarely have a gun. Sometimes you might have a homemade gun.
Right.
That
Potato gun?
No, fire a real shot.
What?
But you only fire one shot, one bullet at a time. And them used to call the gun that time one shot. Because it only had...
one shot.
They only had one shot, so... You know, it wasn't very effective. But if you draw a gun on a man, you know, you can get what you want. So the guns started coming in maybe late 60s, early 70s. Guns became more popular, call it that. But the real transition point, I would say, would be in 1980. You could see the transition, like it's a curtain drop and brand new thing. Because guns and violence in Jamaica was linked to politics. You had two political parties, one on the left, one on the right. But up until the 70s, in the Manley government era, PNP, there was not much difference between the two parties until the Manley era, when it started to preach, popularize socialism.
Right. So now there's division.
Now the division became more stark because the right-wing party, the JLP of Bustamante, made a famous speech and said, "We are with the West." But Manley was more a socialist. Michael Manley, that is the son of our national hero, Norman Manley,
right,
who was also a socialist. He studied in England. He was a successful barrister and Fabian scholar. So he was left leading. And Michael took up the rem in the late 70s and preaching socialism. So you had to take a side more or less. Either you're with the West or you're with communism, because they labeled Manley as a communist, although he was really a socialist. But the propaganda machine at the time labeled them. And during that time, the powers that be really introduced high-powered weapons to Jamaica.
Okay.
And you would say in 1980, we had an undeclared civil war.
Wow.
A lot of deaths. I think the death toll reached about 800 that year.
And this was 1980,
and that went from about 100 a year to 800 that year. So you can see
that's
the defining mark.
Right.
And it hasn't gone down since then, because, you know,
the population was different at the time as well.
Yeah, but the criminal element after the 1980s civil war, sponsored by the politicians, and when Michael Manley was removed from office in the election, and the right-wing government came in of Edward Seaga, the connection between politics and the gangs kind of broke away.
Okay.
The politicians used to sponsor the gangs, but after 1980, when Jamaica really became broke, and we had to go to the IMF and the World Bank for loans, the politicians could no longer support the criminal gangs.
Right.
But by then, drugs came in, cocaine came, especially. Jamaica became a transition point for cocaine, which it still is. First, before that, Jamaica used to trade in ganja, marijuana, and the planes used to come in and load up with marijuana and exchange it for guns and cash.
Okay.
But after the 80s, it was cocaine instead of ganja. And more guns, bigger weapons, until what it is today. The murder rate is about 1,300 every year.
Yeah. It's quite something.
Yeah. So that was the scene. Then that's how guns kind of took over.
And come into, well, on a more positive note, then, you know, Jamaica's definitely had its strife with the economy, with violence. It's always played a role in influencing our art. Would you say that you found a noticeable change in the kind of music that was being played, or the kind of music that was written also throughout that period? Because I know definitely there's an interview, I believe it's with Peter Tosh, where he's abroad and he's speaking about the kind of music that he wants to make, and he's saying he's done writing the songs about love and oh, I love you, girl, and you know, I want you to be mine and the like. He was more interested at that point to write music about the struggle. Would you say that you experienced this transition in real time?
Okay, Jamaican music originated, they said, with popular music, with the mentor beat, which is a kind of calypso, which was talking about living and life. It's social commentary, but nothing very serious. It's a lot of sexual innuendo in the music. That was the mentor. And then after mentor, you had Scare, which was in the Rude Boy era. Again, social commentary was just what's happening in Jamaica, or Rude Boy burn up the place, Rude Boy this and that, and love songs, of course, always love songs. And after that, yeah, the music kind of slowed down. Scare was a very heavy moving beat. Like, right. I remember first time, one of Bob Marley's first songs was Rudy Come From Jail, and it's a very fast beat. Rudy get bail, Rudy come from jail, so Rudy was Rude Boy, of course. Right. And then the music kind of slowed down to what we would call rocksteady, which was a more casual beat and more love songs. That was the era of the big groups like the Paragons, right. Those singing groups, Melodians, too numerous to name. So the music kind of transitioned then. And then after that now, the Rastafarians became popular. Well, downtown, but their influence spread to the music, because a lot of them were musicians. And that's where the so-called conscious music came in. People started singing about international events like Black Power and liberation, struggle, and that. It was that after reggae, after rocksteady, had the beat changed again to what they came to call reggae, which was a more socially conscious music. It still had the love songs. We always have love songs in Jamaica. Even to today, we had love songs. But the reggae now had a more liberation, different message, cultural kind of aspect to it.
For the people.
Yeah, so the people became more conscious, especially during the Manley era, because he preached internationalism and liberation struggle and things like that. So the people became more politically aware, not only of conditions in Jamaica, but internationally. Bob Marley made a thing. It was his third album. His first two were more rasta beat kind of thing. Third album he made was more love songs. And they used to say, Bob, you sell out. You're going back to your love song thing. And even Peter said, boy, I mean, I make no more love song, you know, I talk about freedom struggle and liberation and things like that. Right. So there was that change in the music. But you still had the love songs, and you never leave that out.
Never leave the love songs.
And then transition again to dancehall, which is
a whole other kettle of fish.
A whole other kettle of fish.
That's when you know we moved from social struggle, from love song into now. Well, I just said the mentor had the elements of innuendo. Yeah. We decided that we were going to drop the innuendo and just talk about it raw.
Straight, raw. Yeah. So that's what you have as dancehall nowadays.
Yeah.
Still talking about guns were always a popular topic.
Yeah.
And then the love songs are not really love songs, I call them slackness. They got the name slackness because those the lyrics were more explicit.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it, even during the liberation period, the women were the ones who push the slack lyrics. If you go to a dance or a stage show, it's mostly women who are cheering for the slack lyrics.
And the lyrics are talking about women in a slack way.
Yeah.
There is an irony to it. I think there's also, for some, there is a rebelliousness to it, which I think, as Jamaicans, who, you know, our history is definitely one of rebellion. You know, that element it remains in our you know, our bloodlines, our system, and our DNA. You know, so the response, I think, to the different kind of music. There's definitely, I've got aunties who you know, whenever they hear dancehall, even to this day, they get really annoyed and say, yeah, shut up that music.
Yeah, I don't listen to dancehall as such. I listen as a historical perspective to kind of hear what they're saying, but I'm not into it.
It's audacious, definitely audacious music.
Yeah, and then the language change and what we call indecent language, explicit lyrics, and so that's where we are today.
Yes, we'll definitely become more comfortable with certain aspects of you know, certain things that would be taboo back in the day. You know, the language has definitely changed. There's a lot of commentary also about, a lot of social conversations about our ability to take certain aspects of our culture. For example, the bad words, there's, you know, Bumbuckler, that one is world renowned. And folks, performers, Jamaican performers, they go abroad and they perform these songs and they have no problem in other countries about using the language and using it also as a means to connect with people, really and truly connect with audiences, connect with people of different cultures. It's their opportunity to
authenticate themselves as Jamaicans. Yeah.
Well, in a sense, yes. But where it is right now is definitely reflecting the state of mind of the people, and that in at least of a section of society. And in Jamaica right now, I feel there is definitely a desire for breaking out of the system that we're currently living in, and that rebelliousness just continues.
Yeah, popular culture in Jamaica has definitely got a lot coarser. That goes along, I think, with the drugs and the violence, the guns. So everything has got a lot coarser. And what is portrayed as popular culture, like the use of the language, especially the BC word, everybody can identify that with Jamaica. As a matter of fact, I was watching a game show on British TV, and that it's called Jeopardy, I think it was.
Where you have to guess the letters?
Where you have to guess the letters, and that came up, the BC word came up as one of the answers. So along with jerk chicken and everything else, Jamaica culture has gone abroad, and it's mostly through the music, a lot from Bob and all the other popular artists, and that's where we are today. But back in the day, you couldn't use that word. It was called a bad word, right? Or an 18-shilling word, because the police could arrest you,
charge you 18
and
shillings.
Charge you for indecent language.
Okay.
You go to court and the judge would charge you 18 shillings. So those words were called 18 shilling words.
What would the 18 shillings be equivalent to roughly these days?
Well, 18 would be about,
What could you buy with
in
that?
pound to pound or dollar to dollar, would be about, well, for the average poor man who used to use that word, 18 shilling was a lot of money. Would be about 2,000 to 5,000 Jamaican dollars now. So it was a preventive measure, because if you're going to court and being fined, you're not going to charge you 10 cents, you know, or 5 cents or 5 pence. Because back in the day, that wasn't done. People don't use those words.
Right.
I remember the first artist to use that on stage must have been Ninja Man or one of those DJs in the dancehall era.
So Peter Tosh has a song.
Yeah, Peter had a song on LP record, but I don't think he used to use it perform it on stage. Well, not in Jamaica.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because that's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boom.
Yeah.
We'll leave the rest. So cool. All right. So the influence is definitely heavy. So how did you come to have a relationship with music?
Well, music is always playing on the radio. People would buy records, and music was always a big part of my life. My mom had a garage turntable, and she would play her classical music, and she introduced me to artists like Maria Makeba, Louis Jordan, and in the 40s, in her era, popular music was like the big bands.
Right.
Duke Ellington, Duke Reed, you know, that kind of.
Makeba is a South African.
Yeah, South African.
South African, yeah.
Herb Alpert and that kind of stuff. She even had a connection with Haiti and merengue music and a lot of Cuban music, South American music. So music was always a big part of our household,
Right.
especially on a Sunday evening when mother would take out her records and play. Even classics like Sound of Music and South Pacific and those kind of
Right.
things. So I was always into music. And of course, the popular music on the radio would be starting from Menta to Scat to Rocksteady, reggae, all of that.
Okay.
But to say I was not immersed, I what we call a uptown boy,
Okay.
or middle class or uptown. So I wasn't into interacting with underprivileged until I became a member of the 12 Tribe Rasta organization,
Right.
which was founded in Trenchtown. And then going into Trenchtown at that time, that's when I interacted with that strata of society. And that's where I met Bob and other artists, because they became members of the 12 Tribe, and I was into music, everybody into music, so
Okay.
that's when I interacted mostly with, before Rasta came uptown with Bob again.
Right. So, tell us about that experience, or how that happened, how you met Bob, first of all, how did you end up as a 12 Tribes?
It started from when I was in New York the first time, in the 60s, late 60s to early 70s. At that time, Black Power was what was going on. Black Panther Party and Black Liberation.
Right.
And, you know, Afro hairdo. If I ever show you my soul was
Yeah.
way out there.
Yes.
And so I was influenced by the Black Liberation struggle, and the only place that Jamaicans gathered at that time together was at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church in New York, and I became a member became a part of that, and that had the Rastafarian link. So when I returned to Jamaica in 71, I had a Rasta influence, and I became a member of the 12 tribes.
Okay.
And
start grow the locks.
Grow the locks and, you know, indulge in the sacrament.
Right.
Daily.
Marijuana, na.
Yeah, and on and on and on. And during that time, that's when I first met Bob. That was about 73, as a matter of fact.
Tell us that story.
When he first got the island contract and made that LP, Catch a Fire, we were hanging out at my good friend Sangy Davis, who is another musician, well known. Used to hang out around his house. And Bob came down, this was in Trenchtown. Bob came down one day and in his little beat up Volkswagen van, and had a box of records selling, which was the Catch a Fire. And we were introduced, and that's where I met him, formally for the first time. Although I had known of him, because he was a popular artist, and I used to go to stage shows, not so much dance in those days, but stage shows at the Carib Theatre or Regal Theatre. We had a list of artists like how you would have today.
Yeah.
So I knew of Bob from then, but I then met him at that time, around 73.
73, okay. Yeah. So had Bob broken internationally at this point?
Yeah, well, he was on the verge of breaking internationally because the first LP, Catch a Fire, had just been produced by Island Record, and they were just breaking internationally.
Okay.
Because by the second album, I think it was Rastaman Vibration. At that time, I was still working at the Daily News, and Bob's manager, road manager, another good friend of mine, another Rastaman, Alan Skillcole, Jamaica's most famous footballer.
Yeah.
He was the only Jamaican who has ever played professional football in Brazil. He was a good friend of mine too, a Rasta brethren.
Right.
I remember one day, Skill said to me, "Thorold, why you don't stop work for Babylon and come work for me?" I'm Bob. We're going to make big things, you know. And I kind of thought it over and I said, "Boy, I have 3 children and a good job and security, and we never know. Bob was just another artist, you know. He might have new LP, yes, but neither me, Skill, nor Bob knew that he would blow up like how he blow up.
The scale.
Yeah, and the scale of that popularity.
It's a once in a one in a million, 1 in a billion even situation.
Yeah, because no other Jamaican artist has reached his level. Even maybe arguably Sean Paul and Shaggy. But anywhere in the world you go, Bob is there.
Yeah, we're still yet to see other Jamaican artists attain the same levels, really, because Bob is, you know, on charts every week.
Yeah.
You know?
So during that time, until his passing, used to hang out with him, go up to his house. By then he had moved up to what was 56 Hope Road.
Uptown now.
Uptown now. Rasta come uptown.
Yeah.
Because further down Hope Road is the Governor General's residence.
Right.
Further down is the Prime Minister's residence. Right. So it was on the same road. And across the street was the 12 Tribe of Israel headquarters. So
that's
we used to hang
interesting placement.
Hang out with Bob a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So then from him moving uptown now, just backtrack to when you got the job offer, so to speak, from Alan. Did you end up working with him eventually?
Well, I did a few I think with Alan mostly, because Alan was his road manager, I did some designs for them for record labels. Not the record, not the album itself, but the label itself, like Tough Gang label, and Alan had another label called Ash and Dan. I did some work for them. Okay. Yeah, so during that time, you know.
So how did your relationship then from there evolve alongside Bob and his camp? So you say you had a relationship already with Alan Skill Cole.
Yeah, and Sangy, another musician. So we used to hang out at Bob's house when he had moved uptown and play football with him, go running on the beach, out at Bull Bay in the mornings, and
smoke weed.
Smoke weed is understatement. We used to have the best weed.
Yeah.
You had all kind of weed in those days, like even now. But our liquor group specialize in the best weed. Anywhere it is to be found in Jamaica, in the country, we would drive there and find it and get it. They had all kind of weed, like collie weed. Lamb's bread.
Goat's head.
Goated and...
Goated or goat's head?
Goated, yeah. Like the soup and... Yeah. So anytime, the first thing when you come to a corner and say, who have the best weed? Who have it? Yeah. A man just have to say, who have it? You know what you mean. Okay. Who have the best weed? And we used to search it out.
Where's the farthest you drive? You say all the way to St. Elizabeth?
Yeah, man, drive go St. Elizabeth. There's nothing. Westmoreland, 100 miles from Kingston, and get it and come back, and that's it.
But in those days, there was no highway?
No, Spanish Town Road was the big highway.
Yeah.
It didn't have a dual lane carry. Anyway, wherever we go, we would have it. So we'd hang out with Bob and Skill and all of those other people. And as a matter of fact, it was through our group that Bob met Cindy, Damian's mother.
Is that so?
Yeah, because by that time we had moved uptown and we used to hang out at the discos on Friday and Saturday night. And Cindy was the manager of a disco uptown at the time, at one at the time. And we would go in, as usual, we don't pay anywhere we go, especially when you're hanging out with Skill Cole. Him just big up him chest and walk past the gate, man. And nobody challenge him.
And everybody follow.
Everybody follow. All group of guys would follow. So Cindy was there, but she wouldn't talk to us because we still had the rasta image, and she was a real uptown girl. I mean, up there.
Right.
So one night Bob was hanging out with us, and we said to him, Bob, we have a girl, she's so beautiful. She's the Miss World, even before she went and entered the contest.
Yeah.
But she won't give us the time of day. We want to introduce you to her and see if she would talk to you. So we carry him upstairs to the disco and introduce them, and that was that.
By that time, he did have a little clout already.
Yeah, by that time he was, a little bit of Bob Marley, and the rest is history.
Okay.
Another time we were hanging out, I remember when he got shot, I was working at the Daily News as usual, and they were rehearsing for a tour. By that time they had the rehearsal studio. They had built a studio at the back of Island House, as it was at the time. And they were rehearsing for the tour. And Bob, the nice guy to hang out with. His persona is different from what you see on stage when you meet him.
What do you mean by that?
He's quiet and quiet. You don't hear him, you don't see him. If you don't know, says Bob Marley, that you would know it's him that.
Down to earth.
Down to earth, and so we used to hang up. But when it comes to the music,
yeah,
that's a totally different persona. When talk about discipline, when him say rehearsal is at 9 o'clock, at 9 o'clock you better ready to turn on your instrument. You can't be late.
Right.
So, you used to have rehearsal. During that time they had rehearsal at Island House. So they were preparing for a tour. I think it was a Kaya tour, not somewhere. Anyway, I was at work, Daily News the night, and putting the paper to bed, as was my job at the time. And
what does that mean, put the paper to bed?
Well, we compose all the pages.
Right.
Like a newspaper have 24 pages. We design and edit the pages, put them together, each one individually.
Right.
Do the production, and then put it on the press for the printing to happen.
Okay.
So that night, we had finished putting the paper to bed, meaning front page and everything was set, ready to go to the photographic department to print. And I was sitting there at night, I remember, and one of our colleagues burst into the place. He was upstairs. Them shoot Bob, them shoot Bob. I said, what? I said, yeah man, was just a poor brother. Them shoot Bob, enough gunshot in that place, and shoot Bob and return. So news that I say, him dead, him dead. Him say, we don't know if him dead or what. So where him is? Him say, them take him to University Hospital. So my man was shaking, you know, because he was there when it happened.
Yeah.
Right? And the news editor had to calm him down, box him a few times. Say, calm down, Leslie. Give him a drink. Say, tell us what happened, tell us what happened. And he's shaking and drink. After a while, him calmed down, and we had a photographer, and we sent him up to University College Hospital to take pictures, and we have the famous picture of Bob looking at his arm, and the famous front page, I have it somewhere in my archives here. I'll show it to you later, where we had to redesign the whole front page and say Marley shot with the picture.
That became the headline.
That became the headline, and the picture with Bob, and the story by Leslie.
Right.
And revamp the whole front page. And Little Jamaica Daily newspaper scooped the whole world.
Wow.
With that story. Because television, yes, we had television, but not cable TV. And radio stations, yeah.
Right.
And the other newspaper, the other big newspaper, didn't have the story. Just happened that Leslie was on spot at the time.
Right.
And scooped the whole world, Marley shot, and that became a famous headline.
Right.
Then after we published it in the morning now, the news spread that he was shot like wildfire. Chris Blackwell, I'll tell you what Peter called Chris Blackwell. Chris took him up to the hills and then to Bahamas, and he spent a few years away from Jamaica.
Peter Tosh?
No, Bob.
Bob, okay.
After he was shot, and he did the concert. He was planning to do a concert at the time he was shot.
Right.
And politics and gunmen and thing get involved, and anyway, he did a concert with Rita, and Rita had her head tied up in her bandages and thing. And after that, he left Jamaica. Yeah, and that was that 19, I think it was 76.
Wow.
And then he left Jamaica for a few years and came back.
Okay. And this would have started kick off in the 80s then again.
Yeah, that kind of kick off the 80s.
So by then he's an established artist. You say out of JA, international.
Yeah, international artist now. Tour all over the world, blow up and become big. Because when I came to England and I visited in 1980, I think it was, I see Bob picture all over the place. Him bigger than Elvis Presley, bigger than the Beatles. But in Jamaica, we didn't get that impression. It was just, okay, Bob.
One of our guys.
One of our guys, we know him and we take it as that.
Yeah.
We didn't know how big he was until, well, after he died, he came even bigger.
How did that impact the society and also more particularly the closer circle and community, his passing?
Well, that came as a big shock to many people because unless you were close to him like we guys, you wouldn't know that he was sick, right? Because that was kind of kept on the down low, as I say. But some of us knew that he was sick. We didn't know how sick he was. We knew about the toe injury, and he was trying to get treatment and going through all of that process. And I remember Alan told me the first time he fainted. He was on a tour in, I don't know which LP it was. I don't remember which LP. He was going on a tour with to the Black America audience because Chris Island Record had positioned them as a rock group. So he was playing to white college audiences and white audiences. So this tour was to take him to the Black America audience, which had not accepted him or reggae at the time.
Right.
So the first show he did was with the Commodores, Lionel Richie and the Commodores. Well, he came on before the Commodores, mash up the show, and when the Commodores come on, them flop. So Commodores say, well,
you're not opening for us again.
You're not opening for us again. You have to go tour by yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't have this little no-name artist from out in the woodlands come and flop with.
Bushman with them locks.
Yeah. So Alan said they were jogging in Central Park, as they usually do, to keep fit and think. Bob was one of the fittest man you ever know. Go running every day and footballer.
He was about his health.
Yeah. Serious about it. Natural foods and same was running with Bob, and Bob just shouted to him, Alan. And him just failed. And that was the first time we found out that how sick he was. So after that, he got treatment and still did a few tours after that, but then his health deteriorated and went to Germany. But most of Jamaica didn't know this.
Yeah.
So when the news break, Bob dead. I said, what? Bob dead what? I said, cancer. No, them kill him. Up to now.
Right, yeah.
You can't convince most Jamaicans that them never kill him.
Yeah.
Like how them kill Michael, like how them kill Prince, Whitney Houston. We know the story.
Allegedly.
Malcolm, Martin. We know. So
anyone that we revere and hold in high regard.
And die. Them kill him. So. Yeah. And his funeral was a historic occasion in Jamaica.
Right.
It was held at the National Arena. The Prime Minister gave a eulogy. And
who was the Prime Minister at the time?
Siaga,
okay.
And it had a procession from the National Arena all through the hills to his birthplace in 9 Mile in St. Ann, which St. Ann is the birthplace of also Marcus Garvey, our national hero.
Right, yeah.
And all along the route, people line the road from National Arena in Kingston to 9 Mile, which is about maybe 80, 90 miles. At the time when the funeral procession was passing through, school had just let out. It was that time in the afternoon, so school children and people, the whole of Jamaica stopped. And that was...
Pay the respect to Bob. But it was a big shock to everybody at the time. What would you say is the most impactful message Bob has left with us?
Unity. Get up, stand up for your rights. And unity. Although it's Peter Wright, get up, stand up.
Okay.
But Bob made it popular before Peter. So get up, stand up for your rights. Liberation struggle. Then the Haile Selassie speech about war, you know, until
the
color of a man's skin is no more important than the color of his eyes, and the liberation struggle, really.
How did you react when you heard about his run-ins with, I guess, political oppression? His role in Zimbabwe is to this day spoken about. You know, his performance where they tear gas the stage and him still keep on going. That's iconic.
Yeah, because he was for the black liberation struggle. You remember that LP with all the African flags on the cover, and the song he made about Zimbabwe, you know.
Yeah.
So he was well into that, and as a matter of fact, on that Zimbabwe tour or performance, he paid for it himself out of his own pocket.
Okay.
Because the record label
didn't want to be associated.
wouldn't pay for it.
Okay.
Because they don't see any value in that. Although they were promoting its music, but
still,
you know, record sales in Zimbabwe would be about a few hundred. So Bob paid for that himself, and they performed there. But the crowd got wild, and they had to tear gas the place and control the crowd. But they still had a good show. Yeah.
The attempt on his life was the first attempt. You know, which was 73. You said
76.
76. That was the first attempt on his life.
Yeah, but that's the first and I think only attempt on his life.
Is the only okay.
And to this day, we don't know who did it. Although there's plenty of speculation, and Jamaican have this to say and that to say. And they say it was political because he was supporting a concert promoted by the then government of Michael Manley. He was doing that concert for them. Some people say it was political and that the opposition GLP tried to assassinate him to stop that. But in my take on it is in Jamaica, nothing will happen without somebody know who do it. Somebody know who somebody.
Right.
Marlon James wrote a book about 7 killings, where he speculated and he wrote thinly disguised people who we think might have done it, but it was never proven. Right. Nobody was ever charged, nobody was ever arrested. My own take on it is that it was, let's call it an international hit. No Jamaican was ever arrested. No rumor ever went around that, him.
A particular individual.
Our group of men. And the truth of the matter, we don't know. But speculation is that it was an international hit. Right. And the hitmen left the island on the same night on a private jet. And we can speculate and say, who would benefit? As I say in every murder, look at the person who would benefit most from the murder, and that would be a clue.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So tell us some more stories. We've gone through the ages looking at the political side of things and what the general atmosphere felt like, but what did Jamaica feel like? You know, and I guess let's start with the 60s. What did it feel like? So what what was the most popular fragrance you could buy, for example, in the 60s?
Well, for men,
Yeah.
it's Old Spice
Classic.
or English leather.
Yeah.
They had a Jamaican perfume called Couscous for the women. But
I've heard this before.
yeah, Old Spice for the men or English leather. And Jamaica was nice in those days. I became a teenager and broke out. Well, not really. But I started going to parties.
No.
I didn't have a ratchet knife. I started going to parties, have girlfriend and thing.
Yeah.
And that was 60s, after Jamaica get independent, 62, 68, coming up to the 70s. Jamaica was nice. You could walk anywhere. We used to live in Harborview, which is a closed community on the outskirts of Kingston.
Right.
And we had everything there for our benefit. School, churches, shopping centers, mall, everything there.
Self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient.
Community.
And
proper community.
yeah, it's I think maybe, how many houses? About 1,000 or more houses.
Okay.
So everybody know everybody. Everybody go to everybody's yard.
Yeah.
You walk man down the street, nobody not trouble you. You play cricket and football on the street. Very few cars. You know, it was a nice time.
Yeah.
Like, man up the road having a party, everybody go.
Yeah.
You know, you crash your party, you get feeding, you get your food, you get a piece of cake, and, you know, you go home, no problem.
Funerals are the same.
Funeral is the same.
thing.
It's a big occasion, you know.
Yeah. So you don't know the person.
No, Jamaica was nice in those days. And we used to have, in Harborview there, we used to have a little music set because we into the music. Music is never far from life in Jamaica.
Right.
Anywhere you go, music. So we had our own little set, like a sound system.
A sound boy then.
Yeah.
What you call it? What was it called?
It was called the Lads.
The Lads.
It was 4 of us. Leopold, L, Anthony, A, D, Demo, me, and S, Steven.
Okay.
And our electronics friend who used to be into electronics, he built us an amp for us, a tube amp. Them old time tube amp. And we had a little box. We had one box. I think that in a 10-inch speaker. Because you're playing in a house.
Right.
You're not playing in a stadium or on a stage. So we had a little 10-inch speaker. And my mother's same come back to the garage turntable.
Ah.
So that's
what we use.
That is what we used to use and play out a party. You know, Popular Lads sound system. Any party in Harborview is the Lads.
So you broke the sound?
Eh?
You break any sound around there?
Breaking the sound?
Like any music, any songs?
No, man. We used to buy records from whatever playing on the radio.
Yeah.
Was the popular music.
Right.
And we used to go to Randy's or Warner's or Time Store in downtown and buy our records. That was what was popular.
Right.
You know. But during that time, coming on into the late 60s, we had heard about this sound called Meritone, which was kind of like the uptown sound. Because downtown you had Duke Reed and Prince Buster and Coxsone and thing. And
Coxsone, that's a famous one, yeah.
But uptown now, Meritone had just started playing in Kingston because they originated in St. Thomas.
Okay.
And they just started playing in Kingston around that time. But in those days, they didn't advertise or have posters, or you had to go to the dance on a Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah. And
you find out where they're playing next week. And by word of mouth, you heard about Meritone.
Okay.
So we always heard about Meritone. Oh, them good and them this and them that, big sound. So we were playing at this party, birthday party one night. Marlene Taylor, never forget this.
Yeah.
Marlene Taylor, who became Miss Jamaica 1968, I think it was, yeah. We were playing at her Sweet 16 birthday party. And mashing up the place as usual with our radio music and and
Lads, man.
lads mash up the place. So Mr. Taylor, Marlin's father, came to us and said, he has his friend who has some records if we'll allow him to play some of his records. I said, sure, man, no problem. So the guy come on and started playing some of his music and bring him records, playing his music and playing and playing. And the man call up the party.
He said, nobody not dance.
Nobody not dance, and the man come out for the dance floor. We don't know the music. What is man? So we go to Mr. Taylor and say, Mr. Taylor, you know, see the party a flop.
Him have to go shift.
This man, him can't play nothing. Where him get them recorded from? So, him come off.
Yeah.
Let's go back on, and of course, we mash up the party till hours beat, which is those days were about 12, 1 o'clock. You had to be home.
1 o'clock?
Yeah, 1 o'clock was well late.
Yeah,
the 16-year-old, you had to be home by then.
Well, 60, okay, at that age, yeah, for sure.
Man, yeah. So, the next weekend now, we hear, say, Maritone playing out at Copacabana Beach.
Yeah.
Let's go. So, we go out there, go to Maritone and go inside. You know, when you go into a session, as a musician, the first thing you do, you go up to the DJ and check him out and check out him set and, you know, him record and thing. So we go up and check him out. I have a tube amp, I have a garage turntable just like us, one little record arm and thing. And when we look on the guy who play the music.
Same guy?
No, the same guy. No Winston, the great Winston Blake Maritone. I say, wait, no, the guy from the party this. And the music that he was playing, we didn't have dub in those days. We used to call it biscuit or wax or pre-release. He had records without any label.
Okay.
But true as a sound man, him get them before them release on the radio or in a record shop.
To break them.
And it's that he was playing. The part, Maritone rock the place with the music that night. Guess what? That was the last time lads ever played.
So that's how you realize where the lads maybe don't have an ear for this.
No, lads, man, you behind time I play radio music, man.
Yeah,
every Friday, Saturday night after that, Maritone.
So how often you used to release music them times? Every week, same way?
Every week, music used to release, man.
Okay.
And original music. You hear the music them we're playing today? Was sample them music from the 60s. That time you had the big groups, Melodians, Paragons, can't name them, Slim Smith, Brent Doe, and all of them. Release Ken Booth, Stranger Cole, music release every week. John Holt, and his original music.
Right.
So when you go to a session like Maritone, it's pure the music that you hear. And what you hear this week, next week is another set you hear.
Okay, so it's similar to now then, essentially, in terms of the high turnover.
That's when it started.
Okay, right.
But those were original music. Ken Booth, Train Is Coming, Baby, and Melodians, and them group there. Dennis Brown.
Right. Dennis Brown, man.
Let's see the youth name, Delroy Wilson, Freddie McGregor, Clarendonians, Metals. Oh man.
Truths.
That was back in those days, man. The music was nice. Jamaica was nice in them days.
Yeah.
So when I left in '68, I said, boy, me not see America long, you know. Jamaica too nice.
So the wheel and come back again.
Yeah, me I got get my studies and come back. And so said so.
Boy, me said the same thing, you know, me still there.
By the time I come back in '71, things were starting to change, you know. Things were getting tough, and the economy was moving. Because in the 60s, there was a lot of economic development due to the bauxite. And the bauxite, big aluminum companies like Alcan and Kaiser invested a lot in Jamaica in those days, but by the 70s, 60s, late 60s, early 70s, that had kind of slowed down, so economic conditions were getting tougher. Yeah.
Were they producing a lot? They have a lot of factories at the time in Jamaica?
Yeah, they had a lot of factories in Jamaica. So, as Manley would say, Michael Manley, the great liberator, he would say, Alcan would take our raw material, bauxite, which just 90% of Jamaica soil is bauxite. You just scrape off the top and turn it into alumina in their factories, then ship that to the States and turn it into aluminium.
Right.
Then build a tractor and send it back to Jamaica. And we have to pay exorbitant price for that tractor.
Yeah.
It's the same thing going on even to this day, like the raw materials, like for your cell phone and thing. They dig it out of the soil in Africa for nothing.
Congo.
And send it back to you for a whole heap of money.
Yeah.
So things started to change after the bauxite went down and till it accumulate into what happened in 1980 when, you know, the politicians linked with the rude boy gunmen and that whole chapter, sorry chapter in Jamaica life occurred.
And still impacting us to this day.
Yeah.
What kind of impact would you say Bob had in reversing the negative influence that this relationship between the politicians and the rude boy them occurred? Because obviously he's caught in the crossfire with the attempt on his life.
Yeah. Well, after the attempt on his life, and he went abroad and came back to Jamaica, I think in 78, I think it was 2 years he spent abroad. By that time, the politician gunmen were getting wise that the politicians were using them to kill off them one another. And them wasn't getting them get a little money here and a little money there. Wasn't getting much from it. They were just used as pawns in the game. So I remember one time, so the two sides, the two set of political gunmen came together and say, okay, we're going to call up a truce. Stop firing the gun them at one another. And the plan was really an armed revolution, an armed rebellion against the government.
Right.
Whichever one was in power at the time, it didn't matter. And because they came to the conclusion that they had more arms than the police and the soldiers put together, which is true.
Wow.
So
that's quite disturbing.
Yeah, so they came together and said, let's have a peace conference and also a peace concert. So Bob was involved in that. And the plan was to overthrow the government and make Bob the president. I know you never heard of that, but insiders like myself who were on the ground then knew that was the plan. So they had the peace concert, and you know the famous peace concert where Bob called up the two political parties and they joined hands together on stage and things. The government, of course, got wind of it and eliminated all of those leaders.
All
of them.
To their power.
Bucky Marshall, the big PNP gunman. Claudia Massop, the big JLP gunman. Tech Life, Queer, all of them. got eliminated. And that was the end of any so-called revolution or peace. So after that, the political gunmen kind of got wise and say, okay, we not deal with politics anymore. Drugs,
own a thing, yeah.
You own a thing. So that influence kind of waned. But you still have political areas ruled by the dons affiliated to the political parties, but
yeah,
them now fire guns so much for the party anymore. It's more for their people.
Yeah, their own game.
Their own game.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what happened during that time. So to answer your question, Bob, they were going to put him up. And them see him is the only man who the masses would take to.
Right.
I'm not a politician. I'm a rasta man, a peaceful man, and I don't have any affiliation. You had a lot of revolutionaries in our time.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X was one. Nelson Mandela himself was one.
True.
You know? But the youth of today, I don't see them learning the lessons of the past.
Mm.
They want the quick fix, the bling, and the fast lifestyle. I don't see them concerned with liberation theory like how we were in it. I guess because we were kind of the pioneers and we were the first set of people who said, no, stop. We kind of reached a space where we said, no, stop, but what's the next step? Because even in America, the struggle of blacks for human rights and voting rights, there was a great wave between the times of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, but things kind of stopped.
Yeah.
It don't make any progress since then. Okay, we elected Barack Obama, but did he make any progress? Did he move the struggle forward? Blacks are still oppressed in Jamaica. Africans are still oppressed all over the world in Africa and being exploited. So it's up to the youth to take that lesson. But to me, from where I'm sitting, they're not interested in that.
Mm.
If they can get a Nike or a Clarks or this or that, whatever, or a bling, a Porsche,
yeah,
that's it. That's the end of it. Comforts, they've been seduced by the world, and the liberation struggle is out of their context.
Where it comes to Jamaica, you know, even with respect to, you know, our historical relationship with South Africa, you know, we were the first country to say, come out and say, no, we're not deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not for us. And we don't want to live in a world where that's about. And that those things still occur today. I'm not sure, or maybe you can tell me actually what the young people back then would actually do. Would they go out and protest in Jamaica? Was that a thing that occurred?
Not so much protest, because it was universally accepted kind of that apartheid was wrong and the majority of people were against it. Jamaica in 1959 stopped trading with South Africa. So it was, people didn't need to protest. It was in their consciousness already. Right. So even when Michael Manley came along in the 70s and tried to internationalize the struggle and say, well, it's the West against us and exploiting us, the people were already there. They just took a little push to recognize what was going on in the capitalist world and their position in it.
Right.
So we didn't have to go out and protest. Every now and again, they raise the price of gas, we'd go out and protest, but it was in our consciousness already.
Right.
So, go back to today now. Look at Jamaica vote in the UN on the UN resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, we would be the first one to vote for that resolution.
Right.
And now what we do? We abstain from the vote. Can you believe that?
I think that speaks to a disconnect between governance and the people. Because the young folk, at least amongst those on social media, who are brave enough to speak up, the sentiment is that, you know, we know what is right and what is wrong, and the, you know, murdering children, civilians, and the like, who are not playing any part in your, you know, economic game or.
Yeah, but all over the world, people are protesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just Jamaica government alone would disconnect from the people.
Yeah.
But they have their own vested interests. America, England, France, the major Western powers,
mm-hmm.
have their vested interests why they support the Zionist state as opposed to supporting the liberation struggle of the Palestinian people. So it's not a surprise that Jamaica abstained from the vote. And their silly excuse is they were still discussing the matter when the vote came up. Now, I was born yesterday, and I'm not buying any bridge, so you can't sell me that. They had to vote that way to secure the next IMF loan or the next World Bank loan.
All right.
So we are firmly with the West and puppets of the West, and people accept that. There's no more struggle to say, okay, what's going on in Africa? Yeah, but we just accept the status quo for what it is. If Bob was alive today, I am sure he would be shouting for the Palestinians. He always supported liberation struggle, wherever in the world it is. And people all over the world responded to that. That's why wherever any movement is like that, they use Bob lyrics, because he preached a universal message of truth and rights and against oppression.
Understood. On that note, tell me the funniest experience you had with Bob. Or you heard our funniest story you ever hear about him.
I don't know. I can tell you about, Bob was a serious man, I don't joke much.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember any real funny as such story. They can tell you some things that Peter used to say.
Yeah.
Peter was more, although he was a militant man, but he used to speak out a lot. Mm-hmm. Not only just on his record. Like, Peter had a name for Chris Blackwell. We all know who Chris Blackwell is, right?
Yes.
So Peter, like a lot of Rastafarians, flip things.
Yeah.
So instead of Chris, him say Rusty. Instead of black, him say white. Instead of well, him say worse. So to him never liked Chris never liked him. So him was Rusty White worse.
Instead of Chris Blackwell, Rusty White worse.
Rusty White worse. So
that's a classic.
That's Peter all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, another.
Habit we have a flipping words. You see, You know, I would say I appreciate, and you would say no, it's appreciate love.
Appreciate love, yeah. It's a Rastafarian thing. Again, a liberation thing to get rid of the colonial influence on our language.
True language, right.
So we flip the words. I used to another brethren of mine, he was famous for that. Him don't say dumpling.
Smart plane.
No, him say talk plane.
Talk plane.
Not dumpling. Talk plane, because you're not, you know.
Yeah.
Nowadays you have smartphone. Say, no, it's a dumb phone. It's not a smartphone.
No, that's a smartphone. iPhone and 9 assets.
There was another incident with Bob, I don't know if you ever heard of it. Bob and Skill mostly. He used to love the racehorse business.
Yeah.
Right? And they used to set bets on racehorses that came on a spark. And one time they have to be careful how I talk, you know.
I say no.
One time they had a bet on a horse, a whole heap of money, along with some other characters in the game. But the bet bust.
Oh.
And them lose them money.
Okay.
And on the day, Alan and Bob was at the track. And them had to, as them saying though, they dig up.
Lift up.
They had to leave the area very fast and not in a car either. A friend of mine in New York had a set.
Yeah.
Him call it Black Thunder. Everything black on him set, you know. So one night him playing at a party in the Bronx, and him sit around the set because him alone can't control. Thing have light, it have switch, it have knob, it have this and it have that and it have flash and it. And the man sit around it like a pilot in it. And the man turn knob and switch and thing and flip and for the whole night. Party done. Right, and man I wait for the first bus to come home, so some people are sleeping over and thing, and him turn off the set and thing. So 1 and 2 man around the place, them say, come and play some record and wait, you know, till the first bus come. So we turn on the set, him was sleeping. We turn on the set, light a flash and thing. Guess what? 2 knob work. Volume and bass. That's the only thing work. Volume and bass. And the man round he said the whole night. Volume and bass.
Alright.
That's the only thing we're working. We Mac him name.
Okay.
Good virgin. We used to smoke some with power in New York them time, and the chalice and
yeah, what was the weed like in New York them times?
same as now.
Same.
Good and bad.
Okay.
Nothing new.
What was the most popular thing back then?
We do from there. Days used to come from Mexico.
Okay.
You know, Jamaica never used to export. That is early 60s. After that, no, the posses came on in the 70s.
Shower posse
and them man they used to import the herb and
distribute
the crack and
right.
mash up New York them time. Like, yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you and hearing these stories from you. Really appreciate love. Appreciate love, time spent.
Yeah, man, it was my pleasure. Yeah, man, nice.
Love and respect every time.
Why not?